Welcome to the VP Marketing Show, podcast that takes you deep inside high-performing marketing teams to learn what they do, how they do it, and how they get better every day. We cover strategy and execution, brand and demand, metrics and team structure, today's realities, and tomorrow's opportunities. If you lead a marketing team, you aspire to the top job, or you're a CEO who hires and manages a VP marketing, this is the podcast for you. Welcome to the VP Marketing Show. I'm your host, Steve Watt, and today's guest is Michelle Bennett, VP Marketing at Eagles Flight. We covered a lot of ground. We talked about how they expand their business within the Fortune 500 accounts that make up the majority of their clientele. We talked about how they make PR effective and measurable. We talked about why they brought the inside sales team into marketing 2 years ago, how they got the alignment to do that, and why it's effective for their business. We talk about why marketers are the chief experience officers of the future, and the book that Michelle and her colleagues will soon release on building a customer-centric culture. And we conclude with some really timely career advice. Please welcome Michelle Bennett, VP Marketing at Eagles Flight. Michelle, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
Tell us a little bit more about your role and your company. I know you've been at Eagles Flight for about 4 years. You've been in the VP Marketing role for about 2. What's the company all about, and what's the primary role that marketing plays within that firm?
Absolutely. So Eagles Flight is a corporate events and training and development company. We were started over 30 years ago, and our CEO was the head of HR for Nestle Canada. And at that time, he was trying to find suitable training for his employees around productivity and performance. He created our flagship product called Gold of the Desert Kings when he was there to teach lessons around productivity and performance in a manufacturing setting. And from that, really, the need in the marketplace, Eagles Flight was born. And since then, we've worked with more than 50% of the Fortune 500, anywhere from a one-day training event up to a multi-year initiative to transform their organizational culture.
And how big is the company?
We're just over 200 employees globally. We have full-time employees and also contract employees that will go and deliver our sessions.
And how big is your marketing team?
My marketing team is 9 employees, 7 out of our head office. We have 1 in the Philippines and then 1 in Brazil.
I know from a conversation we had a while back that you have rather large deal sizes and rather complex and long sales cycles. Can you just give us a little bit of color on that to help all the listeners really understand the context in which you operate?
Absolutely. We can have short sales cycles if we're talking about, I have a need for a corporate event that happens tomorrow, but typically our sales cycles are quite long. We're working with mostly Fortune 500 multinational organizations that are looking for somebody, say, to come in and build them a leadership pipeline of employees, which would be a multi-year initiative to really go through their whole employee population base.
And how much of your business is new client acquisition versus expansion within these accounts?
Yeah, we are pretty much your typical textbook, 20% new acquisition, 80% repeat business.
There's a few topics here that I'm really keen on asking all of our guests, because I think that these are things that every marketing leader needs to contend with. Whether you've been in the role for a long time, your business is growing and your business is evolving, and you're thinking about, am I keeping these things current, and are these things really working for us? Or perhaps you're a new VP of marketing and you're moving into this role and you're assessing what's there now and saying, do I need to make some changes? And these are some things around the way the marketing team is structured, the metrics that you focus on, and the way you operate your team. So I'd like to take a few minutes and go through each of those. How about we start with metrics? Because I think that is at the heart of what a modern marketing leader needs to be focused on in so many ways. But that said, there seem to be an incredible number of different metrics and different philosophies around those metrics that different leaders pursue. In some organizations, it's all about high volume of MQLs and SQLs and opportunities. In other organizations, it's much more about pipeline creation and pipeline impact. And some take it all the way to revenue impact. And some focus on account-specific metrics versus broad market and so many different other things. How do you think about metrics, and what are a few of the most important deliverables to the organization?
I'm going to tell you a little story here. Early in my career, I received some excellent advice from actually our associate dean at the time at the Ivy Business School. He said to me, and at the time I was like a little shocked and taken aback by this advice, but he said, "Michelle, you need to prove your worth." And that always really stuck with me, is that yes, I can say, oh, well, we had these many likes or different metrics, but at the end of the day, it's really down to dollars and cents. What were we able to drive through that turned up in revenue in our bottom line? So that advice has made me, people laugh around here because I am all about the numbers and metrics. I have spreadsheets and crazy tracking reports that I do every week, but I have found these to be invaluable, not only to identify insights in our marketing, but also to show our worth.
So specifically, what are one or two of the core,
Sure.
is it literally revenue, like, revenue created, revenue
Yep.
impact, does it all come down to revenue?
At the end of the day, there's only so much we can control all the way down to revenue, but we do like to look and see how much revenue. We do put annual revenue targets against our marketing. But the main area that we look at is we break up SQLs, and we break those up by region. So we have 4 different regions that we track for our marketing effort. And then the other place is opportunity creation. We want to know, how many opportunities are we creating? What is the dollar amount of these opportunities? And then driving those down to the bottom in revenue.
Given that most of your business is about expansion within existing accounts, do you use the same metrics there, or is it any different?
That's a really good question. So we look at kind of annual revenue that we can tie back to marketing. We also take a look at, within those accounts, are we generating new leads within those accounts? So that is something that we often track too. We talk about ways that we can get into accounts because we have a very wide portfolio of products. So we may run a campaign to get into an account on a different topic than we haven't worked with them before. We are also working on a strategy around embedding ourselves further in accounts where we'll actually bring in our videographer and shoot a video for them. Say if it's at a company event, we'll shoot a video, but then at the end slide actually talk about everything that Eagles Flight does, because then people start circulating this video around their organization about that event and see all the other capabilities we have.
Do you have any specific metrics for your platinum accounts, or whatever you call your most important strategic accounts, where you have a separate set of metrics or a separate set of goals to grow some of these into really large relationships? And if so, is that kind of managed and measured separately from the rest, or does it all kind of get rolled together?
No, that's typically measured separately within the sales force. However, on the marketing side and inside sales team, we will definitely put together different campaigns to help support those initiatives.
In regard to your team structure, this is another interesting one. And I've spoken to so many people with so many different team structures. So in some cases, people own channels or they own functions. In others, they own a market segment or an industry vertical or something like that. In others, they may own a stage of the life cycle. So you've got one group of people who is focused on getting that first sale, and another group of people who's focused on the expansion and so forth, and countless other ones. How do you structure your team, and why is that the right structure for your company?
We have found what works for us is we're mostly on a shared services structure. So the marketing team does primarily work out of the head office, but from that shared services, we have a number of we have 2 different brands, but then we also have a wide portfolio that we need to work against selling to our clients. So we just more split it up based on projects and shared services. And then with regional marketers, one in Brazil and one in the Philippines.
So what are some of the key roles that people on your team hold?
So I spoke about some of the video work we're doing. So we have a videographer on our team, we have a writer, we have a graphic designer, we have somebody who owns our corporate events brand, and then we just have general marketers
And
that work across both brands.
I've seen a lot of variety in who owns the website and who owns content, because both the website and content tends to serve many masters and serve many needs of the business. And sometimes it can be a bit of a contentious issue about who controls what's on the main page of the website, or who controls our content calendar. How does that work at Eagles Flight?
We're really fortunate that we have full autonomy over our marketing. We own our website, we own our content, we own our branding for both brands. So we really plan it out. We work very closely with our CEO and sales leaders to develop that plan. But at the end of the day, we own it. We own it in a good way, but we also own the outcome.
So you, the marketing team, is there any particular, and does it ultimately you make those decisions as a team, or are there particular individuals, someone in a particular role who holds responsibility for the website, or someone else who holds responsibility for content, or is it more collaborative?
No, we do have separate people, one person who owns the website, another person who owns content curation across the two brands. We really like to specialize and focus our people, capitalize on what they're great at and just let them run free with that. So we work within those roles are separated.
Okay. And how do you operate as a team? Some marketing teams are starting to embrace agile, and they're running epics and sprints just like a dev team. Others are working on monthly OKRs or annual plans or semi-annual plans. What's your operational philosophy for your marketing team?
Sure. We work on a rolling 90-day plan. However, we're quite agile with our plan and review it actually on a weekly basis of something news came up or a deliverable was done ahead of time, so we can work that in. But we do work on a rolling 90-day plan.
How do you manage the people in the team? Is it weekly one-on-ones and annual performance reviews, or is there some other system in place there?
The way that we work on the team there is weekly team meetings. So we have one with our entire inside sales and marketing team. And then we also have one with just our marketing team. We do like half-hour check-ins with everyone on the team. And because we're unique, we actually do quarterly what we call wingspans, because we're Eagles Flight, which are performance reviews.
How do you manage tangible outcomes like your SQLs and your opportunities and your revenue impact versus harder to measure things, brand awareness, brand sentiment? I think there was a time in marketing where everything was about building brand and building awareness. And then the pendulum sort of swung hard to the tangible, very quantifiable, revenue-driven outcomes. And that maybe led some organizations to neglect their brand and neglect other things. And I think that we're seeing the pendulum swinging back a little bit, perhaps in some organizations, to a nice equilibrium where both are respected. But oftentimes you'll have stakeholders within the business who are adamant on one or the other, and this can be a tension point in a lot of businesses. So is it a tension point in your business, and why or why not? And if it is, how do you manage that?
Because we're in the learning and development industry, there's always a great push on thought leadership. So I've never personally actually felt that, because it's always brand building activities, because you have to be out there being a thought leader in this space. However, as a marketer, where I stack my chips, that's always a battle I'm actually having within myself is, am I doing enough brand building and not bottom of the funnel content curation? This is a balance that I often struggle with, is just knowing what the right mix is there. And I think that comes down to a lot of testing. We work with a PR agency, so we often, are in different publications, and we can actually have tangible results and see when we actually have an article go out that it does spike even in our web traffic, not in related to that article, but because people see that article and are actually Googling Eagles Flight. So we do have a bit of a correlation there. It is hard to measure though, but we can see a bit of a correlation. And we've actually had times where we've stopped PR and recognized that was a mistake.
Interesting. Yeah, PR is a contentious issue in tech. I've spoken to some leaders who say it's absolutely the best and most important thing they do, and others who say it's an absolute waste of time and money. If I'm hearing you right, it generally works relatively well for you?
I think it's another arrow you have. It works exceptionally well when you can tie your PR to an inbound campaign. We found that really works extremely well for us because there's always a great natural conversion path when somebody reads that article and then goes and checks out your website and then sees your latest guide is on that topic, and then you generate leads that way.
Interesting. So it's not PR for general brand building and
No.
general awareness. It's PR to drive a particular asset.
Correct.
Or
Correct. So we align it really closely, our PR efforts with our content curation.
Interesting. And you use an outside PR firm?
We do.
And you also use some other outside partners?
We do. We've been very fortunate to work with SmartBug Media. So you talked a little bit earlier about, who's pushing the marketing effort. And for Eagles Flight, it was actually our CEO. And this was even prior to me starting with Eagles Flight, is he reached out to SmartBug. They are the number one ranked agency on HubSpot. So he just went up, we use HubSpot, let's look who's number one. And they said, you're going to need someone to run your marketing. And that's where I came in. So I started as a department of one, and now we've grown to 9.
A contentious issue within sales and marketing is who should sales development report to. In some firms, they're adamant that it needs to be the sales organization because they're kind of like the up and coming. They're tomorrow's account executives. They're the farm team where we cultivate sales talent, so they need to be rubbing shoulders with the sales leaders. In other organizations, especially those that are embracing a more account-centric approach to things, those sales development roles or business development or by whatever name they may be, will report into demand gen or into marketing, as it's just seen as one more part of that holistic process. How does that play out in your organization and why?
Yeah, we have a bit of a hybrid structure there. The inside sales team reports directly into marketing. We made this switch about 2 years ago. We had like most organizations, a real problem with silos. So marketing was off doing their thing, and it was never really connecting into the inside sales team and the outside sales team. So we made the change to have the inside sales team or business development team move under marketing so they could really act as a conduit between marketing and outside sales. But the way we got around it and how we got buy-in and support from the outside sales team that was used to having this close connection to inside sales is we actually ran a pilot program with one of our best performing inside salesperson, where they started working within marketing. They learned about marketing. They got to understand HubSpot and marketing automation, saw the insights, and we were producing great results. And nothing gets salespeople on board like seeing somebody else have results. So it was actually a fairly easy transition after we ran that pilot to get everybody else on board.
Interesting. And is there any downside to doing it that way?
Well, the inside sales team still has a dotted line to different high-performing sales reps that they will go and help support their book of business. So there hasn't been really downside because the outside sales rep is much more productive now because they have this inside salesperson that's so connected to marketing that they're getting kind of the Coles notes of what's going on, the different campaigns, without actually having to put in all the work, and the insights that all the inside sales team are generating go on to them. So they've actually been quite good fit. Yeah.
How does it work from a career path perspective? That's a tough job, and everyone knows it's a tough job. And those who are good at it, the reason that, they keep smiling is because it generally leads to a sales role in 1 year, 18 months, 2 years, whatever. Is that the career path at Eagles Flight as well, even though they're not part of the sales organization?
Absolutely. It typically is. Now, it could be into another area of our business, such as facilitations or content development. But for the most part, yes, it would move into an outside sales role. We still absolutely, because they're so connected close to an outside sales rep, they are getting that ongoing coaching from the outside sales rep to make them more proficient as an inside salesperson.
Nice. And then your future salespeople come with a good appreciation of marketing.
For marketing, yes.
On day one. It sounds like
exactly.
Sounds like a win-win to me. It is such an interesting debate though. And I've spoken to very successful and people who are very passionate on both sides of that argument. And I believe that ultimately it's what's right for your organization, not that there's a finite way of doing it. It seems like it's working well for you. If your marketing budget were to double overnight, what would you do that you're not doing today? Or what would you do much more of? Or how would you spend that incremental money for the maximum benefit of the organization?
Well, the exciting thing about marketing is you never know what's around the corner. But if you're asking me at this moment right now, I think the greatest opportunity we have in our business is to really invest in account-based marketing. The big accounts that we work with know us for one thing. So say we came in and did a safety program or leadership, they only know us for that one thing. I think there's real opportunity for us to run account-based marketing campaigns to our current clients so they learn about the depth and breadth of our portfolio.
The expansion that you're doing within those accounts
Correct.
today is mostly sales driven.
Yeah, it's unfortunately based on the sweat of our brow of our salespeople to go and plead to get some names into the other, heads of safety or the CLO's office. Absolutely.
Now, given that it's probably very unlikely that your marketing budget's going to double overnight, is that ABM approach something that you are resourcing your way towards doing in the near future, or where are you at on that journey?
Yeah, I would say we've tried ABM, but really like a shoelace bubblegum approach. We've run our own little kind of skunkworks campaigns on LinkedIn trying to target different organizations. We've taken some of our collateral. Now, one of the big benefits at Eagles Flight is we have our own print shop, which is amazing for a marketer, that we can print brochures on demand that are customized for our clients. So just a little bit of projects here and there, but we'd really like to get into it in a big way.
You're super passionate about customer experience, and I know that you and your colleagues have a book coming out on that topic. What do you have to say to marketers about customer experience? What are some of us perhaps missing or failing to appreciate?
I think there's becoming a more and more greater understanding of the customer and really what it takes. So this is one of our practice areas at Eagles Flight where we'll go in and help organizations with their customer experience. And I think the big thing, and a lot of marketers do see this and appreciate it, is the alignment that's needed across an organization for a seamless customer experience. And there's a study by IBM where they're saying there's a big shift actually in marketing roles, and it's actually the head of marketing that are getting tapped on the shoulder for chief experience officers. We're the ones that understand the buyer. We dive deep into their pain points and their fears to develop our marketing campaigns. We're also the ones that feel the pain when there is a negative customer experience and somebody's talking about it online. So we're typically the ones in organizations that raise the red flag when there is something to be fixed within the organization. So we're putting out a book on customer experience and our point of view on how to build a customer-centric culture within an organization. We're really excited to have it come out this fall.
That sounds great. We'll definitely have to get all our listeners notified when that comes out. I look forward to that. Just before we wrap up, Michelle, I'm interested in your advice for people working their way up through a marketing organization and aspiring to a VP marketing or a CMO role at some point in the future. I think we've touched on the fact that there's a lot going on there, right? I mean, we talked about data and metrics. We talked about customer experience. We talked about brand. We talked about managing people. There's so many different things, and it's really hard for people to be great at all of these things. I don't know if anybody's great at all of these things. I guess probably really successful VP marketing are good at all of these and maybe great at a few of them. And some people say you should really focus on your strengths and be amazing at a few things and don't sweat the things you're not great at. And others say, no, you need to really focus on strengthening areas of weakness and being a well-rounded leader. And, there's truth to both of those, I suppose. A long way of coming around to my question. What do you think it takes if you were starting your career over or you were to roll the clock back 5 or 6 years, where would you really focus to position yourself for success as a modern marketing leader?
That's a great question. So I think the one thing is you always have to stay fresh. It's the exciting part about being marketing, and it's also the terrifying part is that every month, every 3 months, every 6 months, something's changing, something's new. You have to stay on top of the algorithm. How are you going to get up in the ranking? So that's one place is just stay fresh, continually learn, continue to read, talk to smart people, hear what they're doing, network within the community. But I think the thing I would tell younger marketers is be patient. And what I mean by that is be brilliant in the role you're in and opportunity happens.
Good advice. Where do you go for insight and inspiration and learning to help you stay fresh and help you stay on top of things?
So where I go is we love HubSpot. They have such a wonderful learning platform. But the other place I go is just networking with my peers and talking to my peers in non-competitive fields. So in other marketing roles that don't compete with in the training industry, and just hear what are they doing and how are they working with their sales force and how are they becoming better aligned and all the different things they're doing within their role. I found that to be a wealth of information.
Excellent. Well, I hope that we are contributing to that with what we're doing here with the VP Marketing Show. I mean, that's really my primary motivation in doing this, is to talk to people like you and to learn. And I strongly believe that every time you speak to a peer, a leader, anyone who's smart and capable and doing good things, you're guaranteed to learn something. And this podcast gives me the opportunity to learn from people like you. But rather than just doing it over coffee and being selfish in my learning, this way listeners can learn as well. So thank you so much. I really do appreciate you taking the time to share your insights and your wisdom. It seems that you personally and your organization are doing some great things there at Eagles Flight, and congratulations for that. Thank you for being with us today, and we will look forward to seeing your book coming out in a few months.
Thanks so much, Steve.
This has been Michelle Bennett, VP Marketing at Eagles Flight. Thanks for listening to the VP Marketing Show. We hope you'll join us next time.